Project with Jennifer Openshaw.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Gen Z Project with Jennifer Openshaw. I am Jennifer. You know, in the midst of the pandemic, there's lots of concern about layoffs and the financial impact on a lot of people, but especially young women and Gen Z. We just put out a report called What's Inside the Minds of Gen Z. And we're also seeing the impact on women, especially, and the inequalities and the burdens that have fallen on women. But as we begin to see, you know, some light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines, the question is there a way to create a generation that's going to be a lot more financially smart, more aware, and maybe in the next coming weeks and months, able to make some moves to set themselves up for better financial security, given the impact that it's had on them. Well, here to answer some of those tough questions is Tori Dunlap. I'm really excited to have her. She is the founder of Her First 100,000K. She has been featured as a money and career expert on the Today Show, the New York Times, People Magazine, Time Magazine, you name it. Tori, let's just start off with Her First 100,000K. Tell me why you created it.
Yeah, so Her First 100K is all about how to advocate for women and giving women actionable resources around bettering their money. So it kind of started as a side hustle 4 years ago, in addition to my 9-to-5 in marketing. And it was kind of surrounded or, based on the fact that I was trying to save $100,000 at age 25, which I was successfully able to do. And so
yay.
Her First 100K kind of became this global movement from there. So I took it full time about this time last year. And now we have a community of almost 1 million financial feminists, 1 million women who are bettering their money, paying off debt, saving, negotiating their salaries, starting online businesses, and just changing the world through their financial education.
Wow. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with Girls with Impact, is to instill that early on. And, I know what it's like having been a motel maid at 14. It is not easy, but, you definitely can do it. And it's so great to have that support system that you've created. Why do you think, there are such inequalities right now? What's your view of what's happening?
I mean, this is a larger conversation. This could take us a couple hours, but
Yeah.
I mean, when we think about COVID, right, we have a disproportionate impact on women and women of color. So we have a lot of people who are essential workers, who are the people who are, forced to work or forced to go outside the home in order to work, tend to be people of color, and disproportionately tend to be women of color. And then we also have so many women who are trying to navigate their careers with managing a family. And so in my own life, I have so many friends who have had to take a step back from their careers, and we're seeing this in the data too, where they can't get daycare, or they can't have family come help them. So they're forced still in this kind of patriarchal, stereotypical relationship to be not only the manager of the family and someone who's primarily caregiving both for children and for ailing family members, but is hopefully trying to also manage a career. And so I think we're going to see the impact of COVID financially, socially on women for, unfortunately, probably a decade or more.
Yeah, yesterday I was talking to a woman who's a single mother and, lost her job and can't move in with her parents, sort of, because of various other health issues. So what do you think women can do during the pandemic to boost their earnings? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions from women who they're coming to me and they're saying, well, in COVID, I have a lot more responsibilities, or I was supposed to have my annual review a couple months ago, but with the COVID craziness, it kind of just didn't happen. Can I still negotiate? Is it like harmful? Is it me thinking I'm ungrateful if I don't, or if I do negotiate during COVID? And what I tell them is that global pandemic or no global pandemic, you deserve to get paid what you're worth. And especially if in COVID you've taken on more responsibilities, or you've had to manage, maybe you're doing multiple people's jobs now, that's even more of a case for you to negotiate your salary. And I think I teach a lot about salary negotiation. I coach on it. And one of the things that I think is really transformational when you consider salary negotiation is that so many women and all of us kind of approach negotiations thinking like, okay, I'm going to have to fight to the death. I'm going to have to put on my boxing gloves. I'm going to have to unsheath my sword. And it's going to be this whole conflict, right? It's going to be this argument and this fight. And that's not what a negotiation is. Negotiations are collaborations, not conflicts. You and your boss or your potential boss at a new company are actually on the same team trying to figure out a solution to the problem of you not being compensated fairly. So if you kind of do that mindset reframe, it can be really helpful to see negotiations as just this problem you're solving, which you do all the time at work, as opposed to this like huge argument.
I think that is a great point, because it's an area that really brings up a lot of, fear, I think, for
Right.
people. But I want to go back to something, because there are a lot of companies that are laying off people. And I would sort of beg to differ with you. I would say, I think people are probably pretty lucky to have a job if they're working. So do you think that's do you really think that they should really push, or is it, at least for the record, talking about the value and how they can contribute more so that they're not let go?
Oh, it's definitely that too. Yeah. I mean, if you are employed right now, we're lucky to be employed. So there's definitely that. I think it's all about how you approach conversations about salary, right? And this is, again, global pandemic or no global pandemic. If you're walking in there feeling entitled or feeling like, yeah, well, I deserve this because whatever, that's a very different narrative than, I know it's a really hard time right now, and I really want to make sure that I'm providing the best value I can for you, and I want to make sure that I'm being compensated for that value. That's a very different tone and narrative than, the entitled, that's a very different perception or mindset. So I completely agree with you. This is all very delicate, and I think it's really about you being able to show the company that you're committed to them, and that you're excited to work through COVID and work through all of these problems with them collaboratively.
Talk about your own sort of, success and stuff. What was most, impactful in helping you sort of navigate challenges? What did it take for you?
Sure. I was lucky enough to have a financial education from my parents. So I was lucky enough to have parents who taught me not to overspend on credit cards and taught me how to invest. And I graduated college thinking, oh, everybody knows how to do this. And of course, realized very quickly that wasn't the case. Right. And that I was the friend all of my female friends were coming to for advice and guidance. And so in starting her first 100K, again, as a side hustle, in addition to my corporate job, I was realizing just how unequal the financial confidence or financial education is between women and men. And specifically that when you start having a financial foundation or financial stability, all of these choices open up for you in your life, right? So you having an emergency fund means you can quit the toxic job or leave the unhealthy relationship. Exactly. It means you can donate to causes you believe in. It means you can pay off your debt and travel and have kids or not have kids or retire early or start a business. So just a basic financial foundation and feeling financially confident can utterly change your life and the lives of others. And that's what I believe I was put on this earth to do. And that's why I say that having a financial education is your best form of protest, because it's your best form of being able to show up in an unequal society and have confidence and have that financial backing. And if we get more money into more women's hands, I mean, we can start changing the world.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It's amazing, sort of the sense of kind of, it's a huge burden. You have a noose around your neck if you don't have your own financial freedom. You have a noose around your neck because you have to make certain decisions that are not in your best interest, right? I think for a lot of people. What's your thought on how, if women right now or men are in the situation, maybe they've lost their jobs, they're thinking about starting a company, being an entrepreneur. And you and I have both been that. But do you think they leave a job that they're in? When do you think you do it, having done it yourself?
I for me, made the smartest decision I could, which was growing and testing a business while having a stable job. And I got a lot of crap about doing that. I got so many people who were like, why don't you just quit your job? Like your business, like you were on Good Morning America, or you were on this place. And I'm like, yes, the 9 to 5 though is what's giving me the opportunity to play with my business. So like I remember in 2018, halfway through, I like killed my best-selling product. I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was able to have that flexibility because I wasn't desperate for my business to sustain me at that point. And so I think if you ask your business too soon to be, your income, it can be really challenging because you're not making necessarily the best choices for your business. You start to hate your business. And I don't want anybody who's getting started as an entrepreneur to feel burned out on their business right from the get-go. So for me, the smartest decision was using, my 9 to 5 salary and stability to be able to fund and grow her first 100K in a very authentic, organic way. I have spent no money on paid ads, no money on paid marketing. This million following that I have at her first 100K is completely organic. And that's just been from me, working over the past 4 years to build trust with people. And I was able to do that because I gave myself time to.
What's your thought on how women build their first 100K when they have credit card debt? And I know, and
Yeah.
this is a topic that both of us have spent a lot of time on, but what do you say to women? What do you say to them?
Yeah. So the reason I named my business Her First 100K is your 100K can be whatever you want it to be. So my 100K was 100K saved. It could be 100K earned, 100K invested, 100K debt paid off, 100K in your business. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what your 100K goal is. What I talk about with clients and with my followers in terms of credit card debt is so many people are just like, you need to get that paid off immediately. And I would say, yes, but actually, I need you to have an emergency fund first because I don't want you going into more debt trying to pay for an emergency because one will happen. We're in a global pandemic. It's a perfect example. And I also just need you to have the peace of mind of knowing that you have some sort of money in the bank. So I actually recommend that before people start, very aggressively paying down their credit card debt, they have at least 3 months of living expenses in a high yield savings account to, tide them over in case an emergency crops up, like a job loss or your pet gets sick or your car breaks down. I think it's really important to have savings first.
And the thing really about an emergency fund that, I've said to folks is you really need it longer because, it used to be that, you could get a job in a shorter period of time. And now it's, the world has just changed so much. What do you say to folks who want to start investing for the first time? And I'm sure they ask us all the time.
Yeah.
Should they invest in stocks, index fund, mutual funds? What do you say to them?
Yeah, I would say that typically when we hear investing as women, because we don't necessarily have that education, we think Wall Street, we think stockbrokers, we think people on phones yelling to each other. Like we think like the Wall Street movies in the 80s.
Right.
And we think that that's what investing is. And in actuality, when we consider individual stocks, which is I think most people consider investing, individual stocks are one of the riskiest things you can invest in because you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, right? So if I buy 10 shares of Amazon stock, if Amazon goes broke tomorrow, which is very unlikely, but if they go bankrupt tomorrow, suddenly I'm out all of my money, right? Or if I only invest in tech or only invest in agriculture, right? I'm putting all of my eggs in one basket. And if you do that, you have to be okay again with that risk. And so what I tell women, and actually the number one reason women don't invest is fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of getting started, fear that they're doing it wrong, right? It's that lack of education piece again. And one of the best ways to invest is through a retirement account. It's a tax advantage place where your money can grow and the government's incentivizing you by giving you tax breaks. And I hear a lot from people, they go, oh, I want to start investing. And I go, well, are you contributing to a 401k? And they go, well, yeah, that doesn't count though. And I'm like, it does. It's actually a great way to start investing. So if you're not already taking advantage of your workplace retirement account, if you're offered one, especially if you're offered a match, an employer match, please take advantage of that. If not, an IRA can be a great option for people to start investing.
What's your thought about women not working? Either let's say pre-pandemic, any situation, not working because maybe they're caring for their children, which is definitely a job. But I'm just curious if you have an opinion about that and the lack of financial diversification or kind of a stability if something happens to the husband, if he's the primary breadwinner. Do you have thoughts about that?
I
Like,
always like to say that personal finance is personal. So your relationship and the way you manage your family or manage your finances is entirely up to you. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I am an only child. I was really lucky to have my mom be able to be that support for me while my dad worked. I know for me, if I ever have children, I don't think that's what I want to do. So there's so many different ways and family structures, and I don't think there's ever a reason to judge no matter what choice people make. I think that if you are going to be like in a similar situation as my parents, I know my dad had life insurance. My mom also had life insurance. So that's something to consider, is that if you do have a primary breadwinner, even if you are both breadwinners, if you both are working, life insurance might be a great option for you to make sure that if something does happen to you, that the rest of the family is still taken care of. So that's a great way to ensure that. And I mean, to your point, there's work is work, even if you're in the home or even if you're managing a family.
yeah. What is, for going back to folks who have credit card debt, how do you suggest they prioritize paying off that debt
Sure.
versus saving?
Yeah, I think that when we have multiple sources of debt, which tends to happen, right? Maybe you have student loans and maybe you have two credit cards that have debt on them. You think like, okay, well, I'm just going to funnel a bunch of money to all of my sources of debt. And actually, that's great. Like you're working to pay down your debt, but that can really stall your progress because you're putting maybe $20 to three sources of debt as opposed to $60 just towards one. So I advise people that when you're paying off debt, to start with your highest interest rate first. That is the debt that's costing you the most money. Typically, that's credit cards. And if you have two credit cards, let's say one at 18% interest and one at 22, work to pay down the one with 22% interest because again, it's the more expensive debt. It's costing you more money. And that way, you're not trying to do three things at once, right? You're not like trying to manage three financial goals. You're just like, okay, I'm going to get this credit card debt gone as soon as possible. So all of your funds can go to just one source as opposed to trying to split them.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that can happen with women is not building their own credit, right? Particularly when they're
Right.
married, super common thing. And then if something happens and she's on her own, what's your suggestion around that?
Yeah. Whether you are in a heteronormative relationship or a same-sex couple, we in the financial industry, we like to say a man is not a financial plan. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're dating or married to a man, but just that narrative around the person you are with is not your financial plan. And we still, unfortunately, in this like amazing women inspired and activated society, we still have this very like old school gender divide of if you are in a heteronormative relationship, the man is typically handling the wealth building financial activities, the investing, the negotiating salaries, buying real estate, and women tend to handle the day to day like budgeting or coupon clipping, which is helpful, but in the vast, or in the zoomed out view of finance, right? That is not necessarily going to build generational wealth. So when you are in a couple and you are relying on your partner for that financial guidance or for that financial management, one of the best ways to just get started to make that more of an equal partnership is to just start asking questions. Start asking, hey, why are you doing that? Or, this doesn't make sense to me. Could you explain it? And it's really vulnerable and scary, right, to admit something that we don't know, but that's how we learn, right? I'm taking French classes starting in January at the community college. I took French in high school and I'm starting French up again. And I am really scared because I'm going to be really bad at it. And I know that, but that's what learning it is, right? If you learn the piano or learn, to speak a new language, that first period of time, you're going to be like a little fawn who's just trying to figure out how to walk on four legs. So I think it's really important to be vulnerable, start asking questions, and be okay to not know everything.
One of the things, having spent a lot of my career in the same space as you, that I advise folks, a couple of things. One is to take a financial date when you've got topics to talk about, really carve out time to go through those topics. And I think women should be taking on tasks because, like, let's just say you're going to refinance something, because you only learn by doing, otherwise you're just, I think it takes you a different level. And I have to say, even in my own marriage, finding splitting the duties is a really nice situation because you're both taking on things, you both know what's going on. And you have to be a part of it, really. And also being ready for, bad things, happens, and just being prepared for, like, what if something happens, which could be some, health disaster, a job loss, something, but then being able to tackle it as partners, and as opposed to something that I've seen a lot is, one person is, kind of handling it all, and, the other person maybe isn't fully understanding what it is, but really being in it as partners. Do you agree with
Right.
that?
Yeah, I think again, every relationship's going to be a little different, but I
Yeah,
think as
sure.
involved as you both can be is really, really important. And I
Yeah,
love your idea of, yeah, having specific duties and having like, oh, I handle the investing, or, this person handles the other thing. And yeah, I have the same concept in my work, and I call it a money date. And actually I am single, I'm not married, and I go on a money date with myself. Like I take money on a date.
yeah,
And it is once a month, it's non-negotiable. I get a glass bottle of wine and sit down and I look at my money. And you can do this with your partner, is this non-negotiable time for financial self-care. And we need to start framing it as that, because we really love self-care right now as a society. It's kind of been
right.
unfortunately commodified, but self-care are the hard things, right? It's like therapy and eating a salad when you don't want to eat a salad, and yes, looking at your money. So I think it's really important to set aside periods of time to specifically review your money, talk about it with the people in your life, and be able to set goals and make decisions rather than trying to do it on the fly, or like acting like your money problems don't exist, because they're not just going to magically go away.
No. Tori, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Don't go away, by the way, but folks, we will be back in early January with a very exciting International Women's Day concert coming up. So more to come on that. I want to thank Tori for joining us, the founder of Her First 100K. I think I said that all right. Her First 100K, giving advice to women. Really fantastic to have you. Thank you all. And